let's talk about this loss. Licorice seems to be happy in a way that this happened because now people will stop talking about it. People will stop saying it. And now C9 can simply focus on being the best team in the LCS, which we all knew that they were.
Yeah, I think that there's two things here, right? So the first is the one that you sort of alluded to and he talked about in that interview, which is a relief. I think that there's a ton of pressure to be this undefeated team. They weren't that in the spring. I'm sure like they're definitely in the discussion for potentially the best team of all time in North America, right? And you know, when we talk 18-0, like that's a ton of pressure on these guys. And let us not forget, on the note of what we were talking about contracts and Blabber earlier, like most of these guys are fairly young, and they've only been doing this. They've only been playing at the LCS level for 3 years or less, right? In almost all cases, between Licorice, Niski played very little more than that long ago, but like Licorice, Vulcan, and Blabber have only been doing this for 3 years or less each. So like this is a team that's full of really talented and high performing players, certainly, but also really young players. So the fact that like having that sort of like breathing down your neck from fans is really intense. The other part of this that I like, we've said on the show, and I don't think it can be overstated, is the fact that they need the competition, right? They didn't get the normal benefit of MSI that you would get if you were a regular team in a non-COVID-19 world, right? And so, like, every loss you can get while still being the best team in the league is valuable in some sort of way, right? Like, there's probably a discussion that they are having now in VOD review about what did we do wrong in this game. What sort of like weaknesses have we identified, and how can we shore those up? Those discussions need to be had. Obviously, we reported last week that that Riot is trying to do some sort of world's bubble-esque thing in China. At the moment, obviously that's not set in stone. I want to be really clear that like this is an internal discussion, and I'm sure they'll figure out something. But hopefully we get the world championship, right? Like there's still a small chance we don't get anything. But if we do get the world championship, like Cloud9 needs as much practice as humanly possible against teams that are good. Unfortunately, not many of the teams in the LCS are very good. I do think some of them are improving over time. 100 Thieves is one of those now with some of these changes. But to me, like anytime C9 can take a loss and still be on top, like that's a good thing for them.
It's, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the sentiment here is that Cloud9, even if they had lost 2 in a row or 3 in a row, we would still consider them to be the best team in the LCS far and wide. But Licorice did say, Emily, in that interview, that even after one loss, and having seen what he has seen from 100 Thieves after the roster changes, he would consider 100 Thieves to be the second best team in NA, despite what Sven said. That's what he said. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think as much as we talked about, okay, how does this roster change make sense, right? Because I think people looked at the lineup, and we had people in chat saying something to this effect. I know they talked about it on Hotline League with Papasmithy, where everyone was like, why didn't you take Ryoma out? He hasn't been performing as well. Like, try out Saligo, like, do that. Everyone was speculating about how these roster changes would work with the team, especially after Meteos, according to like everyone involved, put so much time and effort into like grinding himself, but also like trying to shepherd the team, I guess, or like lead the team, right? But this seems to be the right move for them because it's definitely been a breath of fresh air to this roster. I don't think they've looked perfect. I think they still really overly rely sometimes on Someday's performance to kind of carry them, especially when they make mistakes. But if sometimes all you need is like a change, and it's going to be really hard for anyone outside of the team to see why that is the case. But I really like what they're doing because they're taking more risks and they look a little bit less hesitant. And I think in NA, you really need that if you want to be successful. Like, so there are so many teams that play really passively. This is a complaint I always have about them. Obviously, again, the Olaf pick really helped against C9 because Contracts is super comfortable on that champion, allows him to do so much early, even if I think people, whenever I say someone's aggressive early, it doesn't necessarily mean they're in lanes killing people. Like, he's basically destroying like jungle creeps, right? But he's building a lead. and they're going off of that lead, and it's really important. So I like what I've seen from 100T, actually. I don't know. I'm not playing them in scrim, so I don't know if they are up there now as like vying for second best in NA, but I think it's really interesting that Licorice would say that, and I don't think you can deny that this has kind of revitalized the team on stage.
Speaking of conversations, I also spoke with Tactical this past weekend, and Team Liquid is in the conversation of that second place team. I will end the 100 Thieves Cloud9 note on this, however. There is one thing that there's absolutely no doubt about, and that is that Quebec produces the best supports named Philippe. That is
there's two now.
Yeah, and there's Diamond. And Diamond is in Challenger or Academy, and he is definitely LCS worthy. Diamond, I think if Diamond was on a LCS team today, he'd be top 5 easily. Like, Diamond is a insane player, also from the French Canadian region. So you have
his name is David.
Yeah,
it's not fully.
Not fully. But now we have Poom, we have Vulcan, and we have Diamond. I think those three are the future of supports in NA. All three could be world-class players, and they all just happen to be French Canadian. So there's something going on in French Canada. So congratulations.
Something in the water that makes
something in the water to make really good supports out there.
Beautiful Quebec fresh water. Got to go try it sometime.